This is Craig Ballantyne from Early to Rise Radio, and today I'm interviewing one of our coaches in our program, Galel Fajardo, who, like me, has had anxiety. Did you go to the emergency room?
I did not go to the emergency room, but I thought I was going to have to go to the emergency room. So didn't make it as far as you did.
Yeah. Well, let's start there, okay? So 2009, you are a mortgage broker.
Yes.
In California.
Yes.
You're just lining them all up, right?
Yep.
2008/9 happens.
Yeah.
What happened to you?
So 2008, we find out Emily's pregnant with our first son, Marco.
Okay.
And it was great because I'm going to have a baby boy. It was really crappy because I had 6 deals in escrow, and that week, all of them fell out of escrow because I couldn't finance any of them. So all the income I was going to generate, it was going to be about $40,000 to $50,000 in income, gone. Yeah. And I was left holding the bag on the appraisal costs of those because those usually get passed on to the borrower. So I had all these expenses and negative income. And my wife's pregnant, and I'm going to have to help support the family, obviously, with no income coming in. So it was a rough time right there.
Okay. So not all that happens in one day, but as it starts to happen, how much of that do you let on to Emily? Like how much of that do you hide? When does it all kind of hit the fan?
So I hid the negative behaviors from her. So I got a fridge in my office that was for entertaining clients that all of a sudden went from just having water and some sodas to now having, cans of Miller Lite all of a sudden started appearing because that was for entertaining clients, but it was to help numb me during the day.
Right.
And then where she saw it was I would wake up in the middle of the night with panic attacks.
Oh, wow.
So I'd literally be awoken at 1, 2 in the morning, and she would see me pacing, breathing heavily, having a panic attack. Other times it was that my teeth were grinding so loudly that it would wake her up, and she would say, hey, are you okay? So it was hard to hide after a while.
So how long did that entire span go? So 2008 September is when the financial crisis kind of became known to the average person.
Yep.
And then this period extends for you into how long before it all explodes?
So it had started around 2007. So it actually had started when I was doing well and I was making a lot of money is when I started having anxiety because I had no systems in place. I was keeping everything in my head and I wasn't following a system. And so that led to a lot of anxiety. And then you add in all these financial woes. Yeah. And so now the anxiety kind of had shifted to not only anxiety, but also depression.
Okay.
And so that went through probably until about 2009. So what was great was having a son and having a child that was just a miracle to be holding in your hands. And that really made me shift my focus. And it was around that time that I was fortunate to have people in my life who said, Galel, you need help, buddy. This isn't a way to live. And
so what did they see in you that made so they're not just no one's just going to walk up and say, hey, you need help without them seeing something.
Yeah. So there's a picture that I'll share, when we publish this of me probably 70 pounds heavier than I am right now. I mean, I looked awful.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the signs. But then I just wasn't myself anymore. I just was not. I was kind of a shell of my former self. And really the sad thing is I was sitting here teetering on, listen, man, I've got like a couple $1 million in life insurance and I've got no income coming in. I've got a new child and my wife. I can't support them financially. Maybe it's better that I not be here anymore.
Yeah.
And let that life insurance money help them and they could start over. And that was a very dark place to be in. And thankfully, my parents and Emily intervened and made sure that I got help. And so part of that help was getting to a doctor and getting my blood work and going to a psychologist and going through counseling and doing work. And that's where things really started to turn around for the better.
How would you describe the difference between anxiety and depression? Because I've never had depression, but I've had severe anxiety. How would you describe the differences in maybe the inputs towards them, what they feel like, and how you get out of each?
Yeah. Okay. So first, I'll break down the differences between the two. So number one, there are marked differences in how they present themselves, right? So anxiety is that feeling like there's an elephant on your chest. For some people, it's the abdominal stuff. Like you eat a meal and it just comes out of you, right? And so butterflies times 100, palpitations, cold sweats, panic attacks. you feel like you're going to die. There's this feeling of impending doom.
Yes, the impending doom.
Right? That's anxiety. The depression is, I don't want to get out of bed, and I wish the world would open up and swallow me whole. I don't want to live. Like waking up to face the day, like you wake up, instead of waking up fired up to attack your day, you wake up and you're kind of bummed. You're like, damn it. God didn't take me last night. It's a horrible place to be in.
Yeah, it is.
And millions of people suffer with this. And I'm telling you, people don't have to suffer like that.
Right.
And thankfully, I had enough people around me who were like, this is no way to live. Let's help you get on the right path.
What happened to the business? Like eventually it all ended officially, right?
Yes, it did. And so literally the physical location of this office is something that means something to me. I had kind of avoided this area when renting an office space. We're here in the city of Costa Mesa near the airport because Coast Mortgage Group was the next building over.
Okay. So that's where you were.
That's where I was. And I had a lot of awful memories associated with it. But then, my church is one street over, and my church is where a lot happened for me to help kind of reorient myself with what is truly important to me in my life and my values. And so when looking for office space, I said, no, you know what? I'm going to rebuild, and I'm going to go to the same place that I was at to rebuild. So that's, that company got closed down, literally dissolved with the state of California, and I became a consultant after that.
So anybody who's listening to this that is either struggling with anxiety or depression, business failure, business struggle, impending doom, all these things, what advice do we give?
Talk to somebody. Do not keep it inside you. You have to talk to somebody. And there are people and many resources available that are there to help you. And so, number one is you got to talk to somebody, talk to friends, family, because that support system is truly what helps keep you in the game. Like, we talk about, alcoholism, for example, and it being one day at a time for people going through Alcoholics Anonymous. Truly, when it comes to anxiety and depression, it's be here tomorrow. Focus on being here tomorrow. When it's that bad, that needs to be your focus.
How do you choose the person that you talk to on the family side of things? And then we'll talk about choosing the therapist and that sort of stuff. How do you figure out who the right person is?
Yeah, so family, it's hard. Family is going to be hard because, everybody's family dynamic is different. I am fortunate in the sense that my mother is a medical physician. So because she's my mom and we just had that kind of relationship, it was easy for me to talk to her. Not everybody has a parent who's a medical doctor and who has resources. So what I would do is find that buddy, find that friend who you tell your secrets to. There's got to be, everybody has people in their life who knows what you did last weekend, knows what you did last summer, knows those things. That's who I would talk to. My spouse, Emily, became such a huge support for me. That came with, she and I have such a long history. This year we've been together for 25 years as of this year. We met in high school, been married for 19 years. So she has seen me and she knows when things are off. And she knew things were off. I couldn't hide it from her. She knew. And then from there, it's like, hey, what resources can we find to help you out?
So what were the professional side of things? So you confide in family, they urge you to get support. Do you just find one therapist and that was the one who helped you through, or did you have to kiss a few, or what?
Yeah, so I was very fortunate that the therapist that I found was the one. And
what was it about them that made them the one?
He was easy for me to talk to.
Okay.
He was not trying to push an agenda on me, right? He wasn't trying to make me fit into a box. He was very much listen, and then based on what I said would help move me and nudge me the direction that he wanted me to go towards.
Okay.
And so for me, I was trapped in this world of just self-pity and self-loathing and stuff. And so he wanted to give me stuff to look to the future. And this is why being focused on the future is so vital for people that are suffering from anxiety and depression, because your worldview is, you've got blinders on when you have anxiety and depression. You've got to widen that worldview and see the big picture. This is just a blip on the radar of your life, that there's this huge plan for you that you have got to pursue. And so he put me, so the first book that I read that a psychologist I recommended was Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway.
Okay.
By Dr. Jeffers, I think is who wrote that.
Susan Jeffers.
Susan Jeffers, yes. And that was the one that got me out of my agoraphobic tendencies. I didn't want to leave the house. I didn't want to go to church. I didn't want to ride in cars that I wasn't driving in. I didn't want to go to the grocery store. Like my world became so small. And so for me, just to go to church and sit in a non-aisle seat created anxiety and panic for me.
Wow.
So I had to overcome that by feeling the fear and doing it anyway. And so that kind of helped build my anxiety muscle over time, whereas I got back to quote unquote normal. So took care of books like that, psychology wise. But then the next book that he told me to read was Ready, Fire, Aim by Michael Masterson.
Right.
Or Mark Ford, right?
Right, who I bought Early to Rise from.
Yeah. And that is how
Why did he recommend that book next?
Because he wanted me to think big as far as my next phase of life or business.
Okay.
Because I'm sitting here going, I'm a failure, I'm a failure, I'm a failure. Everybody in my life has told me, Galel, you're going to be so successful, student body president, team captain of the baseball team. You're going to be this amazing person. And here I was with a very public failure. When you lose your home to foreclosure, the first home that Emily and I bought when we got married at age 21, 22, lost that to foreclosure, and I had to declare bankruptcy. Very embarrassing public failures. And so for me, I felt like that defined me. And he's like, Galel, that doesn't define you. Look at all these other successful people that have had major failures in life. Look at Abraham Lincoln's life, right? And how many failure after failure after failure, and struggle with anxiety and depression as well. And so he said, read that book, Ready, Fire, Aim, see what that inspires in you. And so that got me inspired to work more in marketing and kind of lean into those types of skills, because that's what I enjoyed in the mortgage industry. I didn't enjoy writing loans. I loved marketing to get new clients and sales. That's what, to me, really excited me.
So 2009, you shut down that business. 2011, you show up at a seminar with me and Bedros Keuilian in Costa Mesa.
Yeah.
How the heck, what happened in between, and how the heck did you find out about that and show up in that room?
So I read the book, Ready, Fire, Aim, and I get on the email list for Early to Rise. And I start getting Early to Rise newsletters in my email inbox. And it was eventually through those newsletters that I ended up at your mastermind, your one-day mastermind.
That must have been September, because I didn't get the business until July.
Yes.
Yeah.
So basically, I know that the mastermind was in September, you said, right?
I think so, because Bedros and I usually do these mastermind events in September. Sometimes we do some stuff in November, but it would have been the second half of that year, because I didn't even... I didn't run the email newsletter until July.
Exactly. So, and it may have been like it may have been like a couple years after that.
Oh, it might not have been 2011.
It may not have been 2011 that we did that event. Okay. I want to say 2016 maybe, because in between that time, I remember still like reading your stuff, doing that, and then you had your mastermind event. So,
yeah, but Bedros and I were running, just for everybody for a little history. Bedros and I started the mastermind 2009. The one that you would have attended, we finished in about 2015. So
so perfect. There you
go.
So
yeah, 2011, 12, Good. 13.
So there you go. So right around that time, and I want to say 2011 is when it was. One day event in Costa Mesa, and at the time, I barely had the money to go, and it was $500, right? And for one day, and I told my wife, honey, like I've been following this guy for a really long time. I really think this is what I need to help propel me to the next step in my business. And I had all these ideas kind of floating in my head, and she's like, being Emily, she said, if you think that this is worth it, then I will support you. Go for it.
Yeah. What'd you think of the day? Do you remember?
What was that?
What did you think of the mastermind day?
I still remember to this day. So I still remember the room that we were in. And this is what's hilarious.
I think it was over at the Westin.
It was at the Westin. Yeah, it was at the Westin. It was in a smaller room, and it was this U-shape setup. And I see you, and I didn't know who Bedros was. And I'm like, who's this guy? Like this, Armenian dude who's there, right? Who's swearing at a lot, right? Who is this guy? And found out like, who he is, and went, wow. And so that opened up a whole other world. What was so funny is I went to that event with the intent of learning how to become a coach and wanting to like build a coaching business, because I felt like there was this, even when I was in the mortgage industry and things were going well, other mortgage professionals would contact me and say, hey, can I buy an hour of your time? Or can I buy you lunch? Can I buy you dinner? You seem to be doing something right, and I want to learn from you.
Okay.
So I'd gotten into like the David Allen, getting things done type formula. And so I was helping fellow mortgage professionals with their time management and how they structured things. So it was kind of like a precursor to now, right?
Sure.
And so people were doing that, and I'm like, I could do this, but with other professionals. And again, when I showed up to that room in 2011, I was a disaster. Like physically, mentally, I was starting to get things together, but I was nowhere near where I am today. And I remember you saying, "No, don't become a coach." You said you mentioned this anti-anxiety supplement. Do that. You said focus on that. So I did. So I launched an e-com product from that, and from that, I learned so many other skills that helped me the rest of my career.
Got it.
So you pointed me in the right direction.
Yeah. So then, from 2011 or 12 or whatever it was, you kind of went off and did your own thing for a long time.
Yeah.
Then my book came out in 2015 or 16, The Perfect Day Formula. But I don't think we reconnected again until 2018.
Yeah. So I stayed on the periphery. Like I stayed following you. I stayed up to date with stuff that you were doing, bought some programs here and there. And during that time I was employed. So I worked at companies as their director of marketing. Mm-hmm. And then that eventually in 2016, I was still remember where I was. I was in a meeting talking with the CEO of the company I was employed at. And while he's talking on about something, I'm thinking to myself, literally said, Galel, you are meant for more than this.
Okay.
And I left that meeting and I told my wife, honey, I'm going to go to grad school. Will you support me in this? Because this is what I want to do. And I found this program, was in performance psychology over at National University. And she said, yes, if you think this is what's best for us, I will support you in it.
Wow, this Emily, huh?
Yeah, I'm telling you, find yourselves a great partner because it makes all the difference. And so started that program 2016, graduated in 2017. And then in 2016, probably about 3 months after I said to myself, there's got to be more to life than this, I got laid off from that job. Because they were being acquired by somebody else and I had one of the high salaries. So I got laid off and I call my dad. So I thank God he's around. I could call him up. Dad, what do I do? He said, become a consultant, son. You have enough. You'll figure it out. Become a consultant. So I called myself a consultant. Mm-hmm. What kind of consultant? A business consultant. More specifically, digital marketing.
Got it. And
within a week, I had my first client. And then from there, I'm fast forward to now 2023.
Well, fast forward to what year did you join our coaching? 2020?
As a client, I joined your coaching in 2021.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was like end of 2020.
What was the impetus for that?
So I had done the Effortless Discipline Bootcamp, I think, or there was like an Effortless Discipline program that came with a free coaching call. That's what it was. So I did a free coaching call and was like, there's a lot of value in this. Just in the 15-minute call that I had with Ron, I learned a lot. But I was not in the place to be able to get coached. Both in my business, didn't have enough maturity there, as well as just time and energy. It just wasn't the right fit for me at the time. So then you did an annual planning program. And I think it was like in like November, December. And from there was a free coaching call. And then with that is where I made the decision to become a coaching client.
Yeah. And then through the coaching, which was originally with Ron?
It was with Ron, with Ron the whole time.
So what were some of the big aha moments you had and changes that you made from that?
So the major aha moments came within the first 30 days of coaching because I was able, coaching forces you to have to take a hard look at yourself and have a hard look to evaluate the good and then also kind of like the not so good stuff. And so I told him, my intention was, look, I need to improve my health. I need to lose weight. I'm overweight. This is not acceptable. I'm not spending enough time with my family. That's unacceptable for me as well. And then I need to make more money. Right. And so looking at my schedule, what Ron was able to help me do as a coach, my coach was able to help me evaluate my schedule and help me identify tasks that I should not be doing in my day. And so then the next step from there was to hire an assistant. Mm-hmm. Hired an assistant and then implemented the strategies that you teach to begin automating certain tasks, which I automated a ton. That made a huge difference, delegated a lot more. And then there were some things I had to eliminate that I was partaking in that just didn't serve me. Sure. And so that's what I did.
What were some of the things that you automated that you teach people as a coach to automate?
So one of my big roles that's kind of evolved over time is I run an affiliate program in the health supplement space. And this is one thing that I like about our coaching program is our coaches, we're not just coaches reading off of a script or reading off of some sheet, is that we have tangible business experience. And so, I'm running a business that's, tens of millions of dollars every year. And so I get to bring that in, that advice and that experience to my coaching. And so one of the things that was happening is we were getting a bunch of help tickets, people asking things of me. And I realized that I could handle a lot of this stuff with autoresponders if I implemented the right technology, a help ticket system that could automate who questions went to based upon what the questions were. And that cut down my email volume tremendously. So that was a major thing to automate.
Yeah. And so when you work with our clients now, what are you seeing people need to automate? Yeah.
So a lot of times it's not just like specific things in their business tactically, but sometimes it's lifestyle things. So for example, a lot of our professionals that we work with, they want to be in better health. And so they want to eat based on certain macros that their nutritionist tells them. And so we have them have their meals, they pre-choose their meals, and those meals get automatically delivered to them. That's one minor example of way to automate.
And it's a great way of automation because it just solves so many problems and clears up so much space for thinking too.
Yep. Okay.
So then Ron helped you build more time, which allowed you to be more successful. And then Ron says to me one day, man, Galel is really impressive. You must have been impressive in your action and communication. And what else makes a good coaching client?
Somebody who's willing to be coachable. So if you come in to coaching, the type of person you don't want to be is a yeah, but person.
Sure.
Okay. So like I officiate sports. And one of the things that I do when I officiate, so I umpire baseball and I officiate football and I train officials. And one of the things that I teach when I train baseball umpires is you're going to get feedback from us. Please don't say, well, yeah, but so-and-so. Just take what we say, absorb it, and try to apply it. Right. So being a great coaching client is not saying, yeah, but. Listen, ask questions and get clarification on it, but understand that what we are trying to get you to experiment with, and a lot of it is experimenting. Some stuff is not going to work right off the bat. You've got to try, you got to test. Be willing to test and be willing to surrender yourself to that process. That makes a great coaching client.
Got it. So you became a coach in our program. It was last year?
Last year. Yeah. December of last year is when my training started. And then I officially joined January and got my first coaching client then.
Awesome. And what do you feel like is the most valuable advice that you give to clients?
It's all contextual, right? So, I mean, like the most valuable advice that I give to clients, I would break it down to the different subsets in life, but a lot of it, Craig, is what I've learned from you. And so when clients come to me oftentimes they come to a decision point and they say, Galel, I don't know whether I should acquire this new business or not acquire the new business, right? That's a common one I've been seeing lately because a lot of people are looking to exit, they're looking at their planning, etc. And so I then say, well, as Craig says, values and vision drive every decision. So let's look at your values. Your values are, family comes first. And, then next this and that and the other. And your long-term plan says to do this. Does this action match the values and the vision that you've set for yourself? And they look back and they go, well, no, it doesn't, because I want to spend more time with my family. If I do this acquisition, I'm going to spend less time with them and it's costing me more money. And really my long-term goal is not to buy another job. So you're right, Galel, it's not the right decision. And it's that goes back to that decision-making point. That's what helps people when it comes to those choices they have to make.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of big vision, let's actually step outside the professional and go to the personal side. So your parents came from Honduras.
They did, yeah.
And your mom became a physician a little bit later in life. Tell us this story. It must be so inspiring.
It really is. I get a little choked up when I think about it.
It's powerful.
My parents came to this country not speaking English, and they came as exchange students, lived in Missouri, of all places, right? And talk about, we were talking about the weather in Cancun, and, it is cold in winter in Missouri.
Right.
And you got a couple kids from Honduras living in there. It's not the most comfortable of environments. And my mom got pregnant right after they got married, not part of the plan. So my mom was 17 when they got married. She got pregnant at 18, okay? And she had me at 19. My dad was a college student at University of Rolla, Missouri, studying computer science. My mom was too, but she had to stop because she didn't want to put me into daycare. One of her values was that she would raise her children. It didn't match her values to put me into daycare, and she didn't speak English and she didn't know anybody in this foreign country. And so my dad then worked his butt off as the handyman at our apartments to get reduced rent. He washed dishes at a Chinese restaurant at $3 an hour to make extra money, then was working in the library as a student assistant, and then doing all these other odd jobs that he could while going to school. And then eventually, after 5 years, he says, it took me 5 years to graduate university, got a degree in computer science and psychology. And then he landed a job in Costa Mesa down the street from here. And that's how we ended up in California.
Wow.
And so my mom didn't go back to school until my sister started kindergarten. So I was in first grade, my sister was in kindergarten. And then my mom began taking courses at the community college, did that for a couple years, and then transferred to UC Irvine, got her undergrad. And then she said, I'm going to med school, guys. And she ended up graduating med school the year that my wife graduated high school. So I was a junior in high school when my mom was graduating med school. And that was a wild and crazy ride. Being the son, being kids of a medical student, and my dad working full time to help support her dreams, support the family. So she had to miss out on stuff, in our childhood. And we knew that going into it, that, hey guys, this is a family effort. And so they got our buy-in. And they said, listen, we're not going to be around a lot, but no, this is for the long-term plan for us. And so now she runs a private medical practice here in Orange, California. She's a great doctor. Her patients love her. I have friends today that run into me and say, oh, I saw your mom today. Man, what a great doctor she is. But it's just, we're so proud of her that she went all that way.
Man, that is the greatest example of your values and vision drive every decision. That is really, really incredible and inspiring to me. And I haven't even met her.
Yeah, she's a great woman. My dad, he's the chief information officer for an investment bank. So he started off lowly computer programmer and then lost his job. They said, we can't pay you, Galel. We can't pay you your final paycheck. And I still remember to this.
You're Galel Jr.?
I'm Galel Jr.
Okay.
Yep. Galel Jr. And so they say to Galel Sr., we can't pay you. So we have all this computer equipment that you can take. So he's like, okay. So I still remember this day loading up all this computer equipment. I'm a young kid helping him load up this computer equipment, going with him to the unemployment office. I still remember that. And then he set up shop as a consultant and he went and pounded the pavement. And this is a whole other episode in and of itself about how there was no money to make rent. And he went and drove all the way from Costa Mesa to Los Angeles, Hollywood, to Riverside, down to San Diego, collecting retainers from clients so that he would have enough money to pay for rent for our family.
Wow.
And so it's like that type of example that
Sure.
I grew up with that was like, I have a high standard to go after, right? But they just taught me this, nobody owes you anything. They said, you're here in this country and you're an American. We're going to have our values in the home. We'll eat Honduran food and all that. But he's like, God forbid we ever have to go to war against Honduras because you're fighting on the American side, And so they kind of raised me with that pride in our country, pride of ownership, pride of never losing your heritage, but man, that grit and that we're going to make this place our home.
So what messages do you try and pass on to your kids?
That the people that came before them worked their tails off to create opportunities that they have. Mm-hmm. That they have to build their own way in life. That no one's going to just hand it to you. Like now, mind you, they're going to be the beneficiaries of a lot of stuff. I mean, yes, they'll have, wealth, inheritance, and all this stuff one day.
They have more time with their parents than you had with yours.
Big time.
Yeah.
Big time. And so like there's, it's like what matters in life. Like, so what I'm trying to teach them is like, what is it that matters is like loving what you do is so important. And so now it's not this title. If you had asked me 30 years ago, what do you want for your kid? Oh, I want him to have a high paying job and I want him this. I want my kids happy, Craig. That's what I want. Number one, I want my kids to be happy. And so helping them discover what they love to do, and kids' interests change over time, but being supportive of that is important, but also not losing sight of where they came from. My kids, we joke, we live behind the orange curtain in Orange County. And so giving them these glimpses. And so we want to start taking them to Honduras so they can see, guys, this could have been our life had we not been blessed to live in the United States and have the opportunities that we have here. And your grandmother, your grandfather, my parents sacrificed much to be here. Emily's parents, same thing, sacrificed a tremendous amount in their lives to help us get to where we are. So both sets of grandparents gave up so much for us to be here. We're standing on these shoulders of giants. Make something of it, right? Take advantage of that.
How do you draw parallels between parenting and coaching?
Man, there's so many parallels, Craig, because you can, as a parent, it's easy when they're young because they're dependent on you for everything, right? Like to be fed, to be bathed, to be clothed, they need you for all these things. As your kids get older, so like my daughter's now 11, Olivia's 11, Marco's 15. I just say, Olivia, hey, Livy, go brush your teeth and go get ready for bed. Okay. And she could just get in bed herself and go to sleep. So I have to be intentional about making sure I go. And I'm like, hey, sweetie, can I tuck you in? Can I say your prayers with you? Like I have to go in there because she could just go to bed on her own. Whereas before when they were little, I had to go brush their teeth, change their clothes and put them into the crib. And so with parenting, you can be a totally hands-off parent. You could just be as uninvolved as humanly possible once kids reach a certain age and leave them to their own devices, right? And to be a good parent takes work because you've got to be active in teaching them lessons, in seeing what they're consuming, who they're hanging out with, where are they getting their inputs from, and how are they behaving, right? And in intervening at appropriate times. In coaching, you can, as a parent, you can give advice, but it's up to your kids to actually implement it. As a coach, it's the same thing. You can give advice, but it's up to the client to actually do it or not do it. And you can't coach everybody the same way. Like if I had you as a coaching client, Craig, I wouldn't coach you the same as I coach somebody else, right? Because your personality is going to be different. Your needs, your desires are going to be different than another client. Same thing with parenting. I have 2 kids that came from the same parents, me and Emily, and they're different. They have a lot of similarities. There's some nuances I can see. Oh, okay, this is where you guys match, but they're different. And my belief as a parent and what I've learned the hard way is you can't do the same thing with every kid. So if you end up having 3 kids, you may have to adjust how you speak to them differently. You can't necessarily apply the same principle with all of them. You got to have some customization along the way because everybody's personality is different. People learn differently. People's emotions are different. With Olivia, I just have to look at her a certain way and she gets in line. Marco, I may have to speak up a little bit at certain times. And that's just the nuances with parenting. Same thing in coaching. One client may understand it when I just tell them, hey, this is what you need to do. Another client may need me to explain the why behind it. They're still skeptical, and I have to sell them on why they should follow this certain way of doing something.
So as we wrap this up, what advice would you give to a younger Galel, like a 20-year-old Galel?
Don't give up. Don't give up. Yeah, I mean, honestly, younger Galel needed to hear that a lot more. Don't give up and invest in relationships a lot earlier. Younger Galel had a tendency to want to try to do things myself as a lone wolf and say, oh no, I could do this, right? I could do this. So for me, one of the things that I turned 40 this year, and one of the massive changes that's happened over the last year for me has been in the associations that I've developed in my life and seeing the fruit coming about those relationships, right? Building a relationship, deeper working and friendship relationship with you, with Daniel, with Gavin, and other people that are in my life that are high performers. It forces you to elevate your game a lot more. And I wish that at 20 years old, I had been told, it is so important for you to surround yourself with people that have a common future, not just a common past.
Right.
And so develop those relationships, invest in those relationships because they will be that accountability to keep you from becoming complacent.
That is great. I love that. It's common future, not just the common past that so many people get stuck in.
Yeah.
Dude, this is awesome. I'm so excited to have you as a coach, to know more about your your past experiences and all that just leads you to being such a great resource for our team, but also because you're just such an amazing guy to have at the events.
Thanks,
Everybody
man.
gets rallied and fired up when Galel's involved. So super excited to have you at the next Masterminds, and we're just going to keep on helping out and changing people's lives. So how do people get a hold of you? And how can they follow you on Instagram? Because you got some good stuff on your videos lately.
Yeah, so Instagram, just at Galel Fajardo.
Yeah, so spell that out.
Galel Fajardo.
Awesome.
And you can always email me, galel@craigballantyne.com.
Absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for being on the Early to Rise show, Galel, and telling your story and inspiring so many people.
Thanks for having me, Craig. Appreciate it.